In the Shadow of the Valley by Maggot Moshpit. Chapter 29. Ziff and Zik were enjoying a very late nap in their quiet corner of the barracks when a sudden increase in activity woke them. Zik, who was on the highest bunk, peeked his head out and rubbed his eyes. Everyone was suiting up as the commander, who neither of them had met yet, stood at the door shouting orders. They climbed out of their beds, quickly pulled on their uniforms, and approached him. He turned and yelled in their faces.
"Where are your weapons? I said suit up and prepare." "Oh, sorry, sirs."
Trackers like Ziff and Zik were of higher rank than the garrison commander. They frowned up at the rather tall man.
"What in La Roge's name is going on here?"
He gestured towards a small round table. They sat around it as the surrounding soldiers geared up. All of the men that had accompanied the tracking party were as bleary-eyed and confused as Zik and Ziff. The commander ran a paw through his graying fur.
"There have been a number of terrorist attacks against us in the past few days, culminating in the destruction of the smithy."
"No smithy? Frostblight will be doomed."
The commander shrugged.
"I don't much care. In any case, we're about to start fleshing out the person responsible."
"Then what?" "I don't know. The regent has been more vindictive and reckless lately. I doubt he's even thought that far ahead. What else is new?"
They chuckled. The commander didn't see what was funny.
If you'd like to help, we're about to gather everyone in the town square."
They stood.
"Yes, we'll help. We quite like this town. Without the smithy, this town has nothing. We'll be moved somewhere else for sure."
The wind had shifted in the correct direction, and the ship's remaining, smaller sail now pushed them slowly towards their destination. Every man jack on the ship was standing loosely on deck, wearing on their clothes the modified patches. Kethresh stood with her paws akimbo a few steps up the cabin stairs, looking at them.
"Before I give you any weapons, I need to stress the importance of one thing. While you are together and ready to fight, you are all one unit. You walk and fight as one. Let's form rows and columns now."
There was a shuffling, and the group assumed a loose formation. Kethresh raised her arm.
"Now march towards me!"
The group took a few steps forward, but were not synchronized at all. Someone tripped up and knocked over 3 other people. An unidentifiable voice called out,
"Hey, what's the point of this anyway? We need to learn how to fight."
"That's what we're doing. If you can't walk together, you'll end up stabbing the wrong person. Try again, this time in the other direction."
Kethresh had them walk back and forth.
"Come on, it's not that difficult. It's just like rowing in unison."
When she was satisfied they could do a serviceable job, she called for them to halt.
"All right, you can issue yourselves weapons now. Go and grab whatever you can find."
The newly minted members of this army formed an orderly line and, within an hour, were fully equipped. Most carried shields and short swords or spears, or long pikes, while a minority had bows or crossbows. Kethresh considered the group for a moment, then nodded.
"You all know how to use these weapons already. That is, you know which side to stick into your enemy, but there's more to it than that. Okay, those of you with the shields, listen up."
The group in question straightened their posture. She jumped down and walked into the center of them.
"You grab these shields because they'll protect you, but it won't be you that these will protect."
She took one from someone nearby. The shield was long, nearly extending to the ground. It was light despite this, made of wood, with a metal boss in the center.
"Everyone behind you will be relying on you and this rectangle of wood."
She drew her sword.
"Hold it like this and thrust with your weapon towards your opponent. Protect yourself and the right flank of the person next to you with the shield. Hopefully, they won't be prepared enough to be using the same tactics. If it comes to that, we'll have pikes."
She handed the weapon back and walked over to the group with the long polearms. Their weapons were over 15 feet long, tipped not with metal like the other weapons, but rather a light cut stone, commonly referred to as hardstone, which was sharp and easy to acquire.
"Reach over the shoulders of your comrades and stab like hell. Don't get in their way. That's the most important part."
She looked over at the archers.
"I have a special job for you. I'll brief you on it as soon as I've worked out the finer details."
She turned back to the group.
"All right, everybody. Pick a sparring partner and start practicing. Make pairs of a shield user and pikeman. Then find someone to spar with. Turn your spears upside down and be careful where you swing your swords. You'll have to take turns. There isn't much space. If your opponent touches you, you're dead. Go! Archers, there are targets in the equipment room.
She sat on the step and watched as the army began forming into pairs and sparring. Harimau had been watching from the sidelines, and he came over and sat with Githresh.
Impressive talk, but I'm a bit skeptical.
She looked over.
Really? How so?
You're not going to turn this rabble into a fighting force in a few hours.
I know that. Honestly, I'm hoping that the hate these people have for their captors will be enough to win us the day, as well as the element of surprise.
They watched the closest group's stumbling attempts to spar for a few silent moments.
So you're a soldier too, eh?
Yeah. I heard about your unfortunate circumstances getting here. You know General Cole, then?
Harimau gulped.
Knew. He died in the ambush.
Githresh straightened up.
Dead? Damn. I wanted to meet him one day.
Rita appeared at the other end of the ship, stretched, and turned her face towards the suns. Githresh spotted her and furrowed her brow.
Hang on a minute. Is that?
Rita.
Yes, I know her name. She looks a lot like Cole.
That's his daughter.
Oh. I'm glad his bloodline didn't cease.
She looked over at Harimau, who wasn't listening. He watched Rita bathe in the sunlight, a wistful smile on his face. Githresh chuckled.
Men.
He blushed under his fur.
I should practice too.
He hurriedly took his leave. Someone cried out in pain, and Githresh sighed, getting up to see what the injury was. 3 hours later, the rounding up of people had begun. To watch the process from above was disturbing. Miri always had good eyesight, so she could see everyone in town trying to hide or run away. At first, she observed one part of the town being led away, whilst everyone in the other part were unaware. Then word spread, and some people hid in their homes or other places. The felines methodically rounded up every last person, no matter how much Miri rooted for ones that were especially slippery. She wondered why she hadn't been taken down there, since after the townsfolk were rounded up, all the slaves were taken from the fort and brought down as well. After this arduous process, nothing else happened. The sons beat down what energy they could into the crowd. It must have been the intention of the regent to have them stew for a while. She crossed the room to the door and opened it. There was a guard there. He glanced over.
What?
She closed the door silently. A muffled, crazy bitch came from the other end. Miri went back to the window without reacting, grabbing the bars. Marten had been annoyed by the sounds of sparring at first, but after a few hours he had gotten used to it. And, when it eventually stopped, he almost missed it. Marten was still scanning the horizon as a few of the exhausted trainees came to the cabin to rest. They chatted loudly, but Marten wasn't listening. He had just spotted land. He turned to the nearest person, a sleeping arbalist.
Hey! Land! We're here!
No, I'm with him. What? What did you say?
Look. Land.
Arbalist glanced out the window and climbed to his feet.
Finally. I hate sailing.
He grumbled. Marten exited the cabin and climbed onto the roof to get a clearer view of the coastline. Sure enough, there it was. He smiled, feeling just a little sick inside at what might lie in store for him. It didn't take long to reach the shore, and soon everyone was spilling out and thanking the gods for firm ground. Marten stepped over a hill of pebbles and onto the frosty grass at the forest's edge. He turned to Pill, who had followed him up there.
Thank you for navigating us to land, Bill.
Oh, no problem. Though I have a question.
What?
How are we going to get Jafras's dagger off the ship?
You'll figure it out, I'm sure.
Pill nodded.
Yes, no doubt. You don't mind if I test it, right?
No. Make sure the rest know what it does. We don't want anybody hurting themselves.
Don't worry, I know what I'm doing.
Pill proceeded to trip over the hill and tumble down to the other side. Marten sat and watched the tree line, waiting for the ship to be unloaded. He ignored the explosion and resulting gasps of amazement as he thought hard. Bronze eventually found him and sat down next to him.
So we've come full circle.
Not yet, my friend.
We're not fighting over food yet. You're right.
As they chuckled some more, Arbalist and Githresh also approached. Arbalist had his paws on the Jafrasa's teeth.
So, Marten, When do we get to heroically liberate your town?
Kethresh walked to the tree line and looked around.
Which way was it anyway?
Marten smiled sheepishly.
That's what I've been trying to remember. I have no idea where we are.
They all turned to him.
What?
He threw up his paws.
Slow down. I'm sure if I saw a landmark, I could get my bearings.
Kethresh walked over and hoisted him up.
Well, there isn't a moment to lose. Let's get you up one of those trees.
Marten gulped.
Last time we climbed to scarily tall heights, it didn't turn out so well.
Don't tell me you've developed a fear of heights.
I was never fond of them in the first place.
Kethresh led him to a thick tree with many branches.
This one's easy.
She started to climb. Marten sighed and stepped onto the first branch. The other two watched from the foot of the tree. Arbalest glanced at Bronze.
If he falls, you're catching him.
Oh, no, I'm too old for that. My bones aren't strong enough.
Arbalest furrowed his brow.
Old? You joined in when we teased Marten about his age, didn't you?
Yes, but I said nothing about my age. You just assumed.
Arbalest rolled his eyes.
I'm surrounded by old people.
Marten managed to climb to a high enough vantage point to see over the treetops. He scanned the surrounding area, but saw nothing conclusive.
I don't.
Kethresh was lying nonchalantly on a wide branch.
Keep looking.
I don't know if... Ah! It's there!
Kethresh turned to look, and lo and behold, where Marten was pointing was a little fort, tucked away at the top of a hill.
Quaint. I assume that's the feline fort?
Yes. Come on down. Let's make a plan.
When the four returned to the beach, everyone was lined up and ready to march. Ace was standing in front of them, wearing splint mail. Pill was at the rear of the group, riding a cart which now held Drefraze's dagger and all its components. Since they had no pack animals, it was pulled by Harimau and 3 others. Harimau did not look happy to have the job. Marten crouched in the stones.
All right, everybody. This is what we're going to do.
Although initially willing to participate in another of the Regent's plans, upon being briefed in full on what was to be done, Zik and Zif immediately excused themselves to hold private counsel. Zik spoke first.
It's no crazier and crueler than any of his other plans. In fact, it's tame for him. Indeed. However, that's not the point. This kind of vindictive plan is what got Zip killed. Agreed. Things were a lot better with the old regent. Are you suggesting we desert? No. The best we can hope for is some end to this conflict in our lifetime. That would take a hell of a lot. Say, have you seen Tezar lately? No, brother. I've been with you since we got back. She will turn up somewhere. Indeed.
At that moment, Tezar was lurking near the edge of town. She wanted no part in whatever the Regent was doing. It was getting late in the day, and nothing had happened yet. She roamed near the fort, and quickly darted into a bush as the gates opened. The Regent stepped out, flanked by Orly and another figure she didn't recognize. He was dressed very warmly, and his arms were covered by a long cloak. They were walking slowly, and the Regent wobbled a little as they went. Tezar took the opportunity to slip into the fort, unnoticed. She wandered the mostly empty halls, passing the occasional bored guard. There wasn't anything left to guard, but the guards remained as a formality. She pushed into the mead hall and trudged to the other end, where the windows gave a nice view of the other side of the valley. She dragged with her a barrel and a flagon, and she proceeded to drink. Halen sat on the ground with his family. It was one of the rare times in recent days where he was together with them. They had no time to relish in this, however, as they were surrounded by the entire town, which had been packed into the town square. Halen's leg was asleep, and he shook it to get the blood flowing. The packed earth beneath them offered little in the way of comfort. Troy watched the soldiers surrounding them as she tapped her paws on the ground anxiously.
Why all this? After everything, what more do they want?
Halen patted her paw comfortingly. She stopped tapping.
I don't know, child. Please try not to be too afraid. We will protect you.
Tozhenka nodded.
With our lives.
She smiled weakly, but did not answer. Devon was sitting not too far away, thinking hard. Something was about to go down. He could feel it. Whatever it was, he was going to do something about it. The Regent finally arrived, stepping up onto a small raised platform that had been erected for him. He was joined by Orly and the investigator. Orly was carrying a massive axe with a long, curved blade that extended down the shaft a little. The regent cleared his throat, and anyone who hadn't already noticed his presence looked up. He paused and stared into the crowd. There was dead silence among the people of Frostblight.
I am disappointed.
He paused again, turning to face the destroyed smithy.
What fool thinks destroying this town's only reason for existing was a good idea?
He wheeled around and bellowed.
What self-righteous canine bastard ruined my town?
His voice echoed.
I will take 30 of you and execute them. Guards, pick randomly.
A wave of distress passed over the crowd. Some stood and yelled, others cowered low in order to avoid being chosen. A few fled, only to be knocked back by the soldiers surrounding them. Halen tightened his grip on the paws of his two loved ones, not moving. Troy's eyes quickly turned red and watery as she looked at Halen's stony expression.
Father.
Hush.
The regent tapped Orly on the shoulder.
Take Halen's daughter.
She went forwards and slowly made her way through the crowd. People parted, avoiding her axe. She came to the family, Halen looking up slowly.
I suppose you're here for me.
Not yet, old man.
She grabbed Troy's arm. Tojenka gasped, and Halen shot up.
Don't you fucking dare!
He did not let go. Troy looked to him, but could not speak. Orly raised the axe with one paw.
She has been chosen. Let go, or I chop her arm off.
I will never let you take her.
Orly grinned and shrugged.
All right.
She let the axe fall. Troy clutched her eyes shut, but Halen flinched and let go. The axe only grazed Troy's paw. She clenched her teeth as Orly quickly dragged her through the crowd. Halen wasted no time pushing after her, Tojenka right behind him.
Get back here, scum!
Halen, can you see her? Is she all right?
I don't know. Dreyfus, damn them!
Father!
By the time they reached Orly, she was behind a row of guards. Halen threw himself at them, but was pushed back into the crowd. Devon, who had followed him through the crowd, held him back.
Please, Halen, do not make things worse.
Worse?
One of the guards jabbed him with the butt of her spear, and he went down. The regent smirked at him, then looked back out into the crowd.
They will die now.
Cries of outrage were hurled back.
No, this isn't fair!
Don't punish them for the crimes of another.
This is madness!
The regent held up a paw. He was so caught up in the moment that he barely felt the pain in his shoulder.
But...
There was silence yet again. Everyone waited on his word.
I'll save them. I'll let them live if...
He looked down at Halen.
The one responsible steps forward and takes the axe instead.
Halen froze, then smiled weakly.
Of course.
Troy looked at him, shaking her head profusely. Halen, of course, did not heed her signal. He stood and stepped forward, only to be pushed aside suddenly.
All right, it was me. I did it. I did it all.
Halen gaped at Devon, who stood tall with a confident face. The regent's eyes bugged.
What?
The guards threw him forward. He straightened himself.
Yes, I did it all in the name of Defersia, goddess of justice. Now take my life if you will, for my cause will live on forever in the minds of my comrades.
Halen scrambled forwards and tried interjecting, but Devon was privy to him and did not let him get a word in.
For you, evildoer, have wronged the people of Frostblight. For your transgressions, you have been punished. You, good sir, are the foolish one here.
The regent was too angry to notice that what Devon had said was a line straight from one of his adventure books, one the regent had read.
You dare! Get him up here!
Devon was dragged onto the pedestal and held down. Orly stepped up with the axe. The regent leaned over.
Now this I did not see coming. But you, of course, the cocky rebel. You'll look nice without that bloated head of yours.
The investigator stepped forward and frowned.
Regent.
What?
We ruled him out, remember? He was seen publicly by many people as the alleged...
I don't care! You've proven to be useless in the past. Why should I listen to you?
Because...
Chop off his head!
Orly was about to let the axe fall when something exploded, and all hell broke loose.